Hello and welcome to our next Instagram live session. So today's going to be a different type of session today because I'm inviting a guest to have a discussion with me, and he's a really fascinating personality. We're going to be waiting for him to join and I'll add him on. His name's Muhsen, and he's from London, or he was from London, and he's set up a kind of organic farm in which he kind of practices concepts of permaculture and all sorts of things. So I'll give you a little bit of an insight into him. He's a proper kind of Cockney lad. He's a London boy, and he's literally living the life. He's moved out to live off the land. So we all talk about this concept of, oh, I'd love to go and get away from all of the kind of the toxic environment that we live in terms of our food sources, in terms of our the EMF and the kind of just everything that's around us, right? And we sometimes we say, I wish I could just go and just get away from this place and live off the land. So this is something which he's put into practice, and I've got a lot of respect for this brother because he's gone and actually done it. So I'm going to invite this. He's already with us. So honestly, you're going to find this really fascinating. This session isn't going to be a short session. It's probably going to be a long one. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam, what's happening?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good.
Okay,
Just trying to work it out, this whole Insta Live thing. I couldn't figure it out, man. I was like, where do I press?
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good. So I was just giving a little bit of an introduction to you, and I was just saying that this session, in the previous sessions, I said I'm going to try and keep them nice and short. But in today's, I think there's so much I want to pick on your brain and just pull out of there that we might end up taking this either long, or we might end up have to kind of split it up into a few sessions where we can cover a number of different things. So alhamdulillah, how long have we known each other now?
About a year, maybe a bit more.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So, and Muhsen reached out to us initially, and he came to, or you were inquiring about coming to the clinic in Cardiff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find out about us anyway? How did you find out about, what was the link initially?
I just asked someone cupping around Cardiff area, just because I knew that there would be something there. And,
Okay.
then I just got given a message from somebody, and nothing happened. And then you text me separately regarding the farm, but your number was already saved in my phone, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So alhamdulillah, anyway, we connected, and much respect for what you do. I think you've taught me a lot of lessons without even realizing, in terms of what you're doing and what goes into it as well. There's so much kind of about that. But let's start off with a little bit of introduction about yourself. Like, tell me your background, because you're, in terms of your ethnicity as well, you're a bit of a, you got lots going on. So let's give us a bit of background, because everyone wants to know that.
Yeah, my ethnicity is Regent's Park Mosque in the 1980s. That's what I say.
Okay.
It was a melting pot. So my mum was a Guyanese convert. She converted to Islam about a few years before I was born. And my dad's Egyptian.
Okay.
So I grew up with kind of a lot of Arab friends and family. But I also had a very close Pakistani family that we grew up with. And then also a lot of West Indian converts was kind of my community. So it's like three kind of cultures that I grew up with, and obviously London itself as well. Yeah.
Sorry for the ignorance, but and for the viewers as well, Guyanese. Tell me what is that? Where is that?
Guyana is just Guyana is it's the only country in South America that's in the West Indies. It's kind of it's so you would find so Brian Lara, yeah, he's Guyanese, isn't he? Brian Lara, I think he is anyway. Famous cricketer. So the West Indies cricket team would have Guyanese players in it, but it's on the landmass of South America. It's above Brazil, and it's next to Venezuela. Yeah.
Okay.
But the culture is completely West Indian. So carnival kind of culture, an eclectic mix of Asian, Black, African, Amerindian. So it's got a nice mix of people. So what I grew up with was a West Indian culture of Guyana. But we also had friends who were Indian culture, Guyanese Muslim as well. Okay. So it was kind of, yeah. So my local mosque in London was called, they call it the Guyanese Mosque, which is I don't call it now, but we used to call it that, and it was basically run by Guyanese and Mauritian. So we grew up with that kind of culture. So
Yeah.
I didn't really know my Egyptian side until I was a bit older. About 15, when I kind of got introduced to my Egyptian culture a bit more.
Okay.
My family and stuff like that. Yeah.
You've been out to Egypt? You lived out there, or been out there much?
Yeah,
Or
just holidays, not long holidays, like 6-week holidays. I've done a few, and then the last time I went was 2015.
yeah, I've got fond memories of Egypt. I was out in Egypt for almost 2 months,
Mm.
and trying to learn Arabic. Long story. Anyway,
Learn Arabic. Yeah.
tell me about your journey then. Let's get straight into it. So, what got you into all of this? How did you go from being a Cockney geezer to being a Welsh farmer?
Right. Well, I'm still a Cockney geezer. You can take the boy out the Cockney. You know, you heard that. You heard that. Yeah. So grew up in a state, a London estate, North London, and then I moved to East London in my teens, and my stomping ground was kind of like the border of Essex and London, so kind of Redbridge, Forest Gate, Stratford, that kind of area, Ilford. That was kind of where I grew up in, Barking. Yeah, teenage years. Then I moved to South London, probably 2003. So I kind of moved around north, east, and south, and then, you know, did a bit of work, fundraising for different charities for about 10 years, doing training, management, that kind of stuff. And then it got to a point where I just basically, a lot of people I've got to that point. I've talked to a lot of people, and they've got to that point where they think, you know, do I really want to see my kids growing up the way that I was growing up with the influence and environment I was growing up in, or do I want something different for them? And that was kind of the driving force behind a decision to start looking at, you know, possibly a different type of career. You know, but I wasn't really solid on that moving, because it's a big thing. It was more about, like, you know, doing it in your garden and kind of homeschooling. It was that kind of thing. And then I did a permaculture course online with Jeff Lawton in 14. And then
tell us a little bit about, kind of, because you've just dropped the name Jeff Lawson as well. So, like, because obviously that's a big name, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little, because a lot of people don't know. Just give us a little bit of, like, why. What was it that drew you to that? How did you go from being, you know, and how did you get to that point, basically, where, okay, I'm going to study permaculture?
So we had a community meeting where a friend of mine went to Zaytuna Farm and stayed there. You drop your phone.
It's charging at the same time.
Babe, I've got it all plugged up, man. I was on 12% when I got here. But, so a friend of mine went to Australia to study permaculture. She actually did the permaculture course there on Zaytuna Farm. She came back and she said, I went all the way to Australia to find out that turning off a tap is not about saving money, yeah, or saving water. Turning off a tap is about being proactive. And something I never forget that statement. It was just like the most simple thing, but she went all the way to Australia to find this simple thing. For example, brushing your teeth and turning off the tap when you're doing it. People just leave the tap running whilst they brush their teeth. Most people do that. It's just a habit you get into because it's free water, right? So the idea just tied in completely with the Islamic concept for me of water preservation, and the understanding of being frugal and being sustainable in this crisis world that we're living in. You know, it was kind of like, what can I do? So being proactive, that was the statement. So I was like, you know what, I'm interested in this. So I started doing a bit more research, and then I just was like, it was like a rabbit hole, and I got hooked on it. And everything I was doing was about it. I was doing permaculture in someone's garden. I was doing permaculture in my dad's garden.
What is permaculture? So
permaculture is basically a science. Let's call it a science. And the science is a way of processing information, and a way of being active with farming and finance and a bunch of other concepts, with the idea of permanent agriculture. So permaculture is permanent agriculture. So having a sustainable outlook, which basically means earth care, people care, and fair share. Right. So it's looking after the earth, looking after people, and then fair share, and then return a surplus, extra, giving out, and having abundance. So
Okay.
it's planning to create permanent systems that can continuously give and that are perpetual. So the classic example is a fruit forest. You plant trees that you know that in 50 years' time is going to be giving fruit. You know, one apple tree will give you hundreds of kilos of apples. So it's like, it's that idea, rather than cutting down that tree and putting grass and just grazing it with cows, and then selling the cows for money. You think about, what can I return back to the soil? What can I return back to the earth and to the people? So it's about fair trade. It's about looking after people's income. It's about community living. There's so many concepts that come out of it.
Okay.
But doing permaculture, there's an active element of gardening, let's say, that you do within permaculture. So like, you know, putting down no dig beds, mulching things, and putting bunches of, you know, different types of potatoes, and checking out all the different varieties of
So
vegetables.
did you come at this from a, like, for me, my journey's been, okay, I studied, you know, health. I studied in alternative health. I've started to recognize, okay, the importance of nutrition, importance of diet. And then I started trying to look and understand of the quality of my foods. And then obviously then going further and further, then you realize that it's not even about the quality of your food, it's about the quality of your soil. And it just goes further and further back. And now it's where, you know, all forms of kind of knowledge all merging together, you know, the health and your physicality, you know, living a good life, your food, you know, the soil, then you go into kind of animals and, you know, the various chains and systems they are. So obviously, like, I've worked backwards, and, you know, I'll just give a little bit of a story. So one of the reasons why I connected with Muhsen specifically was I came along this kind of conclusion that I want my children to eat healthy, and I want to have kind of sustainability, a little bit of kind of organic food or whatever I can produce. And I tried, you know, my last chickens died recently. They got eaten by a fox. And that was me throwing in the towel, because it's bloody hard work, I tell you. And that's just keeping a few chickens, right? Well, chickens, they weren't that trouble, but I started trying to, you know, we thought we'd try and keep some rabbits. And again, this was a very difficult thing as well, trying to rear rabbits for meat, right? Because I was like, you know what, I'm fed up with learning and understanding about the meat industry and how it all sits. And you know what, let's have our own meat, and we can live off rabbit. It's a very healthy meat to have. And actually thought, now some of you might be thinking, what the hell? But I actually wanted to give this a go. And, you know, I went up to Muhsen's farm, and, you know, you keep rabbits and you're doing the similar kind of thing. And I was just in awe to kind of see what you're doing. But anyway, that's my backstory and the reason why I kind of got into this. And the root was, as you said, it was like my kids and my family. I was like, I want to put goodness into our bodies, right? I don't want to pollute our bodies. And I understood the importance of that. You know, we live in a neighborhood where literally, like, our neighbors, both sides, I've got my in-laws who are not far away. They've all suffered with cancer. The people who lived in this house before us passed away of cancer. And it's like, you know what, this is just crazy. And you know, it makes you think, it makes you question. So that was the main reason coming into it. What was your thing getting into permaculture? Was it more that you saw?
It's a very similar thing to what you're saying. It's exactly that. It's nutrition was the first thing. So my journey in nutrition, I was much heavier than I was before. I used to be sort of borderline obese. I was more going towards that. I actually was obese at one point. I was classified on a BMI, but you know, it's not the perfect measurement. But and anyway, I tried everything. I was yo-yo dieting. I would lose weight, put it on, and so on and so forth. And you know, tried low fat, vegan kind of based diet, and then just craved meat all the time, and you know, tried all of these different things. And then I came across the sort of keto, diet. Let's say not a keto diet. It was actually called the Primal Blueprint. That was the first effective thing that worked for me, and that was basically a meat-based diet, carnivore-based diet. So, you know, when you start getting into that, you start looking at what your meat is. Then you start thinking, how am I going to get that meat? So I was like, I need to find farms, because you're not going to find. You go to halal butcher and you ask them, what is this animal eaten? They don't even know what the animal is. Much as like, I've come across food meat that's in a tray. It says mixed meat. You ask them, what is that? They don't even know. Is it, there's all this kind of stuff. It's so opaque, such an opaque industry. So this quest of learning about farming and grass and soil and all that came directly from that journey through nutrition. And it had such a massive impact on my life. I changed so many people's lives from it as well, because so many of my family members saw the effects that it had on me, my health, and consistently till now. Weight's not been an issue. It goes up and down a little bit, but it's not been an issue. Whereas before it was a drama, it was something that was part of my life. It was affecting me. And I got fit and healthy. I was, it changed the way that my family saw me, understood me, and that made them question the same things, and they all benefited from that. So then I was like, right, now it's kids now, because I got married and I'm having kids now, so they got to be nourished the best way. So that was a journey, and then it all came, from that. And I was like, all right, I've got to start raising my own animals. I was raising my own vegetables, but it wasn't enough. I need to raise my own animals. I also got involved with Abraham's, which is I'm a partner in the company. So I was getting hold of good meat, but it's still expensive. Even my cost price meat that I get is expensive when I'm trying to eat a carnivore-based diet. So I thought, right, I need to source my own cows. I need to start buying cows directly from farmers and all this kind of stuff. Get 2 chest freezers and fill up that directly from farmer, because I'm getting all these interactions happening. So that was the journey that got me into permaculture and farming and all those kind of stuff. So calls coming in, just decline that. Yep. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. So obviously you got into permaculture. You got into, and I'm gonna touch upon a few of these things as well, because obviously, so you mentioned that you follow a carnivore diet, you're mainly kind of a meat eater kind of diet, and we're going to discuss some of those things, because you've said some crazy stuff to me. You told me you slaughtered an animal and just ate some of its liver raw, right? Yeah. I was like, what? But I've looked into it, and it's really, really interesting stuff. And I understand the importance of kind of organ meat and how it's really kind of nutrient dense and so forth. But I'm also going to play a bit of devil's advocate as well in a minute, because I'm going to talk about kind of I'm going to ask you about your diet and how you follow it. And obviously you get some people who are completely, I work with a professional heavyweight boxer who's a vegan advocate. He's a vegan boxer, and he swears by cutting out meat and all of these different things. My own father, my grandfather, both my grandfathers both passed away of heart attacks. My father passed away of a heart attack. And there's all these questions like, okay, you know what, is this really the right sort of thing? People say red meat, all these sorts of things, they kind of come into it. So we're going to touch upon those. But before I do, I just wanted to follow on from the story. Okay, so your journey. So maybe I'll kind of try and push you through it a bit quicker then. So you went from understanding the importance of getting good quality food, growing your own food, growing your own meat, sourcing your own meat. And how did you end up on a farm?
So that was the journey. I was going directly to farms all the time, and I was buying my milk and looking out onto the sunset, and the horizon, and cows coming home, and talking to farmers, and sometimes being there for a couple of hours whilst I'm buying my milk. And I thought, wow, man, this is a nice way to live. It's hard work, but it's a nice way to live. It's very perfect.
Was that accessible in London?
In London, yeah. Farms, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get to farms in London. You drive out 1 hour and you're around farms. But I would drive a bit further. I'll drive to Somerset. Yeah. I would meet farmers in London who were doing the farmers markets. Yeah. And then it just kind of, you would investigate around. Oh, sorry, one sec. I've got somebody who's just trying to find their way to my farm. Can you believe that? Okay, give me 1 second, right? 1 second. Give me 1 second.
All right, no worries. So what I'll say is that I want to really pick Muhsen's mind. So while he's doing that, I'm just gonna talk to you guys for a second. So let's see who we've got with us. Actually, I can't do that now. Yeah, I can. Okay, so we've got Vance, Assalamu alaikum. We've got a good number of you. So yeah, you guys, if you've got questions about this, carnivore diet, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm supposed to, people, there's mixed messages, right? Especially when it comes to nutrition. We have people who are, wanting to eat healthy and all of these sorts of things. But one of the things that we get caught up with is it's often confusion, right? We get mixed messages. Sometimes we get told, okay, meat is healthy, and it's good for you. Eating liver has all these nutrients and all these other things. And then we get told on the other side, you got to go vegan. You got to cut out dairy. You got to cut out meat. You got to, you shouldn't have red meat. You get all of these kind of mixed messages. I even get, surprisingly, if I get people who are suffering with diabetes and they get given kind of dietary regimes to follow. I've even seen patients who are diabetic, and they've been told, to cut out their sugars, yet they're having loads of potatoes in their diet, loads of pasta, loads of kind of refined carbohydrates, and their sugars are out of control. So a lot of mixed messages. So let me know what your thoughts are on that, and I'm just going to quickly go through some of the messages and things. Oh, we've got Taz with us as well. She's someone who does helped us with our plants in our clinic recently. Gush's Halal World, Assalamu alaikum. Let's see if I can invite Muhsen back as well. I've got to figure out how to do that. So is he there? There he is. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can invite him back. Okay, hopefully we can. You said the soil has to be good. Did you mean if we was to grow our vegetables?
Sorry about that. Really
the soil
sorry.
Had to be of a certain good quality. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so just touching upon some of the different, just talking about how there's kind of conflicted messages with diets and all of these different things. But what we'll do is we'll go back to your story. So you said, so you were in London, you're traveling, you're going to different farms and stuff to source your own things. And then, where did it go from there?
So and then there's the access to halal from those farms wasn't happening. So although I'm going there getting raw milk and cheese and all the kind of stuff that I could get, there was meat there that I couldn't get. And I'm looking at this meat and I'm saying, wow, man, this is like the real deal. Why hasn't the halal market got this? Obviously that was coincidentally at the same time working with Abraham's and coming together with Abraham. So,
okay, so this is news to me now. So Abraham's, which is the halal meat suppliers, right? They do organic halal meat or grass-fed halal meat, right? And kind of, well, you could call it tayyib, right? I won't use the term organic because there's lots of different certifications and blah blah blah. But ultimately, we're looking at kind of good sourced meat from meat sourced from good sources, basically, right?
Yeah.
So they're a company, and by the way, I'll just kind of plug them in because it's something which I believe in, and I think people should, have access. Because, like you said, sometimes it's like we don't even have access. Even if you want to buy it, you want to pay for it, whatever it is, you just can't find it, right? So there is a company out there that supplies organic or kind of grass-fed, and natural meat that isn't kind of adulterated and filled with drugs and kind of all the wrong foods and all this other stuff. Abraham Organics, is that right?
Yes, no, it's called Abraham's. So it's abrahamshalalmeat.com.
Abraham's Halal Meats. Okay.
Yes.
And they supply. So I thought you were someone who set that up or were involved in that. So you were working with them already, right?
Yeah. So a friend of mine set it up. Then a friend of mine bought it from my friend of mine, and then I got with him. He bought it 2010, and I came 14.
Okay.
And then officially became partner 2015. So that he was just like, look, you're the right man for this. You're talking to farmers already. You're buying all your food from farms. Like, this is basically the next stage is just talking to farmers about their lambs and getting it to the slaughterhouse. That's a big part of your role. So and then I just took that on. I did the marketing for it. I do the newsletters for it. I did all the blurb on the website, and basically that whole exposure just changed the way I thought about life. I said this, and we're lucky in the UK. We're actually quite lucky. The meat is actually not as bad as it is like in the States or maybe even in the Arab world. But one of the key things is the feed that the animals are fed. So, I feed my chickens a non-organic pellet, but the pellet that I use has got non-GM soy in it. Okay, so I'm not against soy. There's some people that's like against soy as a feed for animals. I think it's a good source for animal feed, but the problem is GM soy. Is it a problem? Is it not? is there an issue with cancer? Is there not? You know, so I don't know. I don't know anything about it for sure. But what I can do is take it out of my diet. So, but to see if all your viewers now could try this, go and find something without GM soy in it, any meat. You would have to find that farmer and ask that farmer what he's feeding his animals, and that farmer may not even know that he's feeding them GM soy. That's how far it goes. So I thought, like, I did this an experiment one time. I went to a farm and there was a big grain silo there, and he was a grass-fed operation. So I said, how come you got the grain silo in there now? He goes, oh, we expanded our cows. You came here 2 years ago. We've got like another 40 cows. We can't feed them only on grass. So I said, oh, what's in the pellet? And he said, well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. So I said, is there GM soy in it? And he said, probably. He didn't know. And I said to him, you need to check that, because if your market finds out that you're starting to now feed your cows GM soy, they are going to lose their minds and you will lose that market. I said, I'm not going to say anything, but it will get found out. Yeah. So he basically had to find and source a new feed. And he said it was almost impossible to find that. And he had to pay 20% more. Yeah. So that is, no farmer's going to want to pay more. And rules changed in 2013. You didn't have to disclose it, but now after 2013, you didn't have to disclose it. Before 2013, you had to disclose on the packaging in the retail whether the animal was fed GM or not. And then they changed it in 2013. So that's at the same sort of time. I thought this is a bit, you know, and now we're in the, you know, according to them, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no proof, but they can say that. You can say that about any nutritional variable. There's no proof. It's impossible to prove. How can you prove saturated fat causes heart disease? It's impossible. But they've got it on the NHS website right now. And it says, avoid saturated fat like sausage rolls. Yeah? So the only thing that's good in that sausage roll is probably saturated fat. You know what I mean? But that's their advice. So that's a carbohydrate-based thing. It's nothing to do with saturated fat. So how can you isolate it? How can you give a population just that food or just that thing? It's not going to happen. And they say, oh, but no one's dying from it. I say, but all of a sudden they've got cancers of all sorts of types. We don't know if it's causing those things. So can I avoid it? Yes. Can I avoid using 4G and Wi-Fi? No. So if my brain is being fried and I'm getting brain cancer right now having a talk with you, I can't avoid that. That's the only way I'm going to do it. But I can avoid it in the food. So that was kind of where, and that's what just took me on a quest to just get closer and closer to the source. And then obviously Islam as well. Like, you know, that's the main motivation behind me. It's my faith and my belief that we have to be light-footed on this earth, and we have to be people who are responsible for the next generation. And if we're extracting all the time and have all these crises all the time, what are we leaving for our kids? What are we leaving for 100 years in the future? So that's kind of the driving force for me to start the journey. And then I just convinced my family, look, you know, we got a property to sell. Let's sell it. Let's take the London money and put it in Wales, and we get much better, you know, land for our money and so on and so forth.
So that was your family home?
Yeah, it was our family home in London. Yeah. Okay,
so it's some convincing.
Oh yeah. It took a bit of it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How did you get your mum around it? I've obviously, you know, we've discussed as well. I've met your mum, and obviously she's a strong character. MashaAllah. Yeah, Egyptian, yeah?
No, she's not Egyptian, she's Guyanese.
Oh, all right, okay, Guyanese.
I have to make sure of that, yeah, because that will get me in trouble. But,
okay.
Yeah, she was quite welcome to Isaac, actually. It was the biggest thing was convincing everyone to come on board, because there's no way we were going to do it, just me and my mum and my wife. It had to be my sister as well. So we had to kind of combine our forces, you know. And it was so hard to find a property, because we'd find the right property, but the land was wrong. Or we'd find the right land, but the property was wrong. We found this perfect property, but it was too high. We found this perfect land, but the property was too, it needed a lot of work. And, you know, the property that we found that you came to, it was almost like two houses. So you had like one half and then the other half of a communal area. I said, this is it. This is the one. And I knew it straight away. But it had a lot more land than I wanted. I bought the land here is 26 acres of pasture and a 30-acre forest, which means a lot of responsibility. At the time, I knew it, but I didn't know how much it was going to be a problem.
But just like, just put that into context, right? So what is that? 50 what? How many acres?
55 acres. Yeah.
55 acres of land. That's huge. That's like,
it's big.
You get people who are living in little box houses, yeah? And like, you're talking about 55, like you got your own forest, bro.
Yeah. But although that's a beautiful thing, in one way, it's a stress as well.
Yeah.
Like I if I could do this again,
we'll talk about that, and I'm gonna talk about my experience coming and visiting you and seeing you in your prime and in your graft, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well, because people really need to appreciate and understand that. Because what I think is a big part of this process is people need to respect the farmer, and they need to respect and understand what actually goes on. Because this concept of, okay, let's go to the halal meat shop. Oh yeah, I'll have 20 chicken wings and 20 chicken drumsticks, and I'll have I don't know, two racks of ribs, please. It's just like bam, bam, bam. It's just like, yeah, there you go. You go home. There's no appreciation for what it actually is. Like, and obviously an animal's died for that, right? And, this concept of, and I think, I guess again, you hear it in terms of, in our faith, right? We hear that in Islam, we hear the concept where, Allah mentions in the Quran how he's helped the grain, he's given us grain, and all of these things have grown, and all of these different things. And even in the stories, for example, of in the ancient Egyptians, when they were fearing of a famine and all of these different things, right? So I guess as a farmer, you could be doing your work all year round, and I guess the weather could change everything in a flash, right? So you got that almost like this, like that insecurity that, what, is this really going to happen? Is it not? So I guess doing what you do, there must be a big amount of kind of faith and connection that goes in with your everyday job, right? Yeah,
you get this seasonality. The weather now. Like I can tell you when it last rained. Because of this dry period. We had. I was like, no, because one of my friends said to me, we haven't had rain for a month. I said, no, we had a bit of rain on the 9th. And then you remember it, because like when you get a really dry period and then you get heavy rain, you just get sediment moving everywhere all over the farm. You get erosion, and it becomes very difficult to manage. That's one of the parts of the permaculture aspect of it, is to try to get the system designed so it becomes more resilient, so you're not so much in fear of that. Jeff's whole thing is that, look, we've got a flood going right now. The whole of Eastern Australia is flooded. He said, but we're not even feeling the flood because we've built a resilient system. So that's for me, that is it. That's the whole thing. Because once you do that, you build a resilient system. It's not about resilient for you and your family. It's resilient as a demonstration site for the rest of people for the rest of time. Yeah. It's so rich in its perpetuality.
I was so fascinated when I came to visit you, because literally Muhsen took me. We walked. I took my kids down as well. And by the way, this is something which Muhsen has available and offers as well. We're going to be going down to visit Muhsen for our staff. Our staff we do it like an annual gathering for all our staff. So we're taking them all down to South Wales, and we're going to be going and having hopefully some beautiful food with Muhsen, because he's a bit of a chef as well at the same time. So he's going to be doing a whole lamb for us and all this. I'm not going to get into it because we're fasting, but inshallah it's going to be a beautiful day. But this is a service that he offers for families, for groups, for corporate kind of events, whatever it is. And alhamdulillah, this is something that he does. But anyway, we went down with the kids, went down with the family, and you took us for a walk in the woods, and literally kind of just the knowledge, like you were just spilling off all of this information as if it was just like everyday knowledge. And like, even now when you're talking, I have to stop you and say, look, well, sir, what is permaculture? What is this? What is that? Because I think we have to realize and recognize that, and I'm also the person that I'm talking about, is that often we're so far away from the understanding that you have, that all of this is like a completely different language. And you're, again, I guess you're involved in that all the time. I guess same with me in my field, like I'll have assumptions that people understand or know these basic concepts, right? But we don't. So we're gonna have to dumb it down all the way. But you were talking about, look at this plant, it's growing here because the nitrogen is this and that in the soil, and we'll know when it's, the earth, the land, the mud or the soil has this sort of cycle. So there'll be this phase, that phase, and then when we have this phase, there'll be this type of plant growing. And it was just like, wow, it was like, I'm never going to look at a piece of mud the same again. It was just like
soil is like it's like space. Yeah, you can imagine it like that. You look out to space, you think, wow, it's so vast. We look out to the sky. We kind of, as humans, we look up, right?
yeah,
But the same thing's going on underneath us. Like 1 tablespoon is billions and billions of bacteria and protozoas and nematodes and just a whole soil web of life.
yeah,
And that's kind of, you know, I have soil guilt here, right?
yeah,
Because I've not been able to do my animals perfectly, so I'm damaging the soil in some places, and I'm overcome with it. But I also know it's part of the process. I have to learn. I have to develop my skills of electric fencing. I have to get the budget. There's a lot of money involved in doing this kind of thing properly. You know, I've had some government help with what they call a Glasssteer grant to get some fencing in. I'm learning I'm learning on the farm all the time how to do things. So, you know, you take away the labor aspect to a certain level, but you're kind of stuck. You're kind of, you know, I want to get animals, but I can't get them because the system has to be perfect. So my rabbit system, for example, was exactly that. I had it all grazing and everything, and they just kept dying and dying and dying and dying. Yeah, from disease, from different other things happening. You know, thank God it wasn't any predator situations, but I was getting a problem. So I said, right, I'm buying hutches, and they're going inside. And it was like, oh, but they're not free range. I said, free range rabbit is a dead rabbit. That's what it is. That's what it is. So I've come to terms with that, and I've also now seen that my system can benefit the soil by all the mulch and material that comes out of the like the waste from the rabbits that I collect, which it wouldn't have been doing if it was outside, sort of thing. So, you know, you start to evolve a kind of a sensible and non-dogmatic approach to stuff, because you've got to make it more resilient. You know, you can't just choose whatever breeds you want. You can't just have a housing you want. You know, there's the perfect system out there, but you can't afford that right now. You know, I remember my wife was like, "Oh, why don't you just do it like that?" And she was pointing to some video of Jeff's composting toilet system, and I paused the video and I said, "You see that pipe?" And I paused that pipe. I said, "That pipe is £200. There's like 20 pipes, yeah, it's like of that one pipe." And it was like, I said, that turning thing that he's got there, that's like £45. I said, that's a 15 grand job, yeah, to make a toilet, right? It makes sense on his farm because one, he's got the people coming. But I said, am I going to put a 15 grand toilet in? And she's like, oh yeah, better just stick to the portaloo that you got there. You know,
what you're doing though is, you know, it needs, like, we as anyone who's conscious of these things needs to be supporting, needs to be involved, like, because you're like, you know, they say that, was it people, you know, they have all the arrows in their back, right? That's you. Yeah, you're the pioneer. You're going forward, and you're really kind of pushing forward.
In the front.
That's it.
Yeah, they're always facing forward. No, it's a story that Khalid bin Walid, he didn't have any. He didn't have any. Yeah, he didn't have any scars on his back. He's always on the front because he was facing the enemy, and that's that idea, facing the enemy directly on. Yeah, that's what I tried to do. My son said it. He said they were coming up with certain things, and for me, it's not an ego thing. It's just amazing that he's spotting this trait in me, because he can see that that's a very you know, he can hold on to that trait. And he's like, he said he was coming up with all these animals for everybody. Melis is a sloth. This one's a slug. And then he goes, Daddy's a buffalo, right?
Okay.
And I thought, oh, it's big and smelly and dirty, and you know. And he said, no, because a buffalo just keeps going. That's what my son said. Okay. So he said, and that's it. That is literally, like, sometimes I think to myself, I need to stop. I need to slow down. I need to just, you know, today even, I went out and I come back and I started digging, man. I was like, stop it, man. You just got to stop, because you just continuously engaged in that. And then especially when you're fasting, you have to take that step back, you know.
And your work is like a full-time, it's not even a full-time job. It's like 10 full-time jobs. You've got like so much stuff you have going on. And I guess what you're saying is, and it actually reminds me of a analogy that I was once explained to, saying like a business, like with a business is like a tree. You know, you put the seed in, and every single day you go and you check on it and you look after it and you fend it from the wind, and then it becomes sprouting, and then again you keep watering it. You put so much effort and attention into it, and you could do that for 2, 3, 4 years. And eventually you get to a point where it starts growing where you don't have to do as much. And then eventually you get to the point where, you know, many years down the line, you can then not do anything at all, but you can sit under the tree and it shades you and it gives you its fruits, right? And it, you know, I guess that's in maybe my own understanding of how that was an analogy which I was told about business, that's how a business should be. But from what you just described, that's like permaculture, right? You develop a system and you create something which can then look after itself and feed you and people generations to come. And you put that work in for that system to be established and so forth. But saying that, nonetheless, I've seen you, you know, mashallah, you're working hard. And I don't want to throw dust in your face, as they say, but, you know, I genuinely, you know, I've got a lot of respect for you. And even when I listen to you and I speak with you and spend time with you, it's like, you know, I think there's so many qualities and wisdoms that we can gain from just what you're doing and experiences that you have. And as you said, spending time with the animals, spending time on the land, you know, that, you know, there's, as they say, there's no, you know, there's a reason why, you know, prophets were shepherds, right? Because they learn certain qualities in the work that they do. And in terms, you know, I'll give you my experience. I can't remember if I shared this with you or what, but, you know, when we first got the chickens, right, I built this chicken coop and I was like, yeah, we put the chickens in. We had 7 chickens. And, you know, I was pretty proud. I went to bed at night after spending a week building this chicken coop. I'm not a DIY person, but I went and I made out of all these pallets and everything else. And I was just with the drill, just going and going and going. I was knackered after it. Eventually got the chickens, put them in. First night, fox comes. He finds this little hole, which I forgot to screw in. So I put the panel there and I think I nailed half of it, but he managed to pull it out and get in. And I'm asleep and all I hear, and it sounds like, and even my neighbor said, she said, I thought your children were being murdered, right? Because they were screaming, literally, like the chickens were just being and you know, the fox is in there and he's going back and forth and they're screaming and they're making so much noise. And there's me, right? And I'm literally like, I jump up and like adrenaline is pumping and I've literally I'm like shat myself, right? I'm so scared, yeah. And the first thing I do, I just go out, right? I didn't have my glasses on, so I can't see anything. I didn't have a torch, right? This is like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Didn't even have, I put on slippers, right? Which are, and I, believe it or not, right? I grabbed my missus's dressing gown. Yeah, I wasn't even dressed properly. And then there's me going to try and rescue me from these chickens, yeah? And then I get there and I think to myself, right as I get right at the front, I think, oh my God, what if this fox attacks me, right? and you know what? I know it's like a bit of a weird story, right? But this is realistically what happened. But when I went away from that, the thing that I learned and the lesson that I learned, honestly, and I hold it today, I think it's a life lesson I had from that experience, is that as human beings, like if we were out on a farm and we were doing this kind of stuff, like your livelihoods needs to be protected as a man. And, you know, you need to have this certain thing about yourself that you need to be able to protect your own. Do you know what I mean? Right? Which I never ever experienced that before. Like you have to constantly be on the alert.
It didn't help that you're wearing your wife's dressing gown as well.
It didn't help. And plus the neighbors came out and they saw me. Right? And you know what? It was an embarrassing situation, but it was a reality check. Because it made me think. I was like, and I thought that, you know what, if I was on a farm, or if I had, you know, if I was back in the olden days, right, where this was my livelihood, this was the food for my family, right, and there was me, and I wasn't able to protect my animals, because it's not just about protecting your family, right, your alpha male role, right, as the protector and the provider, it goes into all, and now obviously I've thrown in the towel, to be honest, right. This was a year ago that happened, and literally it's been a year now, and I've just literally thrown in a towel because there was 2 foxes and there was feathers all over my garden, bro. And it was because we forgot to close the gate. We forgot to close the thing, right? So that was the end of that story. But I definitely learned from it that as human beings, there's this certain quality that we're lacking, because like even for this whole year, I would be asleep and I'd hear a sound and I'd be up and I'd be like, who's in my garden? What's there? Right, and what is it? And I'd be alert. And I think just that, and I think that's just one thing, and I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of lessons and qualities that you develop, you know, looking after your animals, looking after your land, you know, being conscious of the environment, all of these sorts of things. But I just thought to myself that, wow, there's so much that I was just completely oblivious to. And you know what, like, as I said, I think there's certain qualities as human beings, like I think we won't get into this conversation too much, but you know, as males, you know, we live in a world where all of our male dominant traits are dormant, right? They can't really be used in today's society, or they're not really relied upon in today's society. And men are sometimes, we can see ourselves as being a little bit useless, right? In many senses, because what makes us men is now diluted. And like I said, I'm not going to get too much into that conversation because it's a big topic and we're not going to go there. But yeah, it taught me that. And I honestly, and when I came to visit you and I saw the work you were doing, all that, and I was thinking, who am I kidding? There's no way I'm going to be raising my own, like doing all of this stuff. I thought it would be straightforward having chickens, because when you get broke, I thought it'd be nice. In my mind, it was like Big Brother, right? If you ever seen Big Brother, they got the little chickens, they go collect the eggs. And I used to, it's been a long time. I think that was when Big Brother first started. I watched that and I was like, yeah, it'll be like Big Brother. We'll have our chickens in our garden and, we'll just collect the eggs and it'll be nice and we'll have a pretty garden and everything else. Little do you know that chickens bring rats, right? Chickens are messy. And then when I brought the rabbits, how much the rabbits poo. And it's just like so much crap everywhere. And, we moved and we got this house and my wife was like, oh, I'm so glad we got a garden, because when we lived in Leicester, we didn't have a garden. And now she doesn't even want to go in the garden, right? And it's like, it's ruined. Yeah. And I'm like, man, what have I done? And it was like, who was I kidding? It's such a hard job. It's just, it's not easy. It's literally not easy. And then seeing you and what you do is like, wow, it's just crazy. But
yeah, it's also there is a fantasy that people have. They have this kind of back to the land fantasy. And I had a good lesson in that before I bought the farm, which was basically, don't delude yourself that this is going to be some, like just a walk in the park, that it's firstly, you can't do everything in the perfect way. So you want to try and do something. You, as my friend Salah said it to me, he goes, you are trying to correct something. So of course, the way you're going to start, it's not going to be perfect. You're trying to correct something. The way that we've been farming for so many years, there are some sustainable systems that are out there, but generally it's an extractive system. So you're trying to now put a system that's self-perpetuating, and if not giving more back, that's going to be difficult. So the journey along the way means you're going to be making even more mistakes even. So there's a lot of delusions about living on the land and how sustainable you can be. And the mindset it takes. Like, my family are not on the same path as me when it comes to this. They get it, but I have to battle to tell them to not use the electricity at certain times, or if we had an off-grid system, they would not be able to do it. They want hot water at 11 o'clock at night because that's when they want to have a shower, and that's it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I've been to houses where they've got 100 liters of hot water and they got to share it between 5 people. So it's what they call Japanese baths, where they basically take a bucket and they go into the bathroom and then they use that to wash themselves. And that's how they live. There's no drench head shower. There's no wet room. There's no, it's just the toilet had a curtain. Yeah. And I was dying to go to the toilet when I went there, and I didn't want to go because there was a curtain, them white curtains, what are they called? Net curtains.
Yeah.
Like, they can see me. You know? I can see them, they can see me. And it's like, well, we've got another toilet that's about 20-minute, 10-minute walk that way. It's like, all of our water's rain catchment, so please make sure that you turn off the taps. It's a completely different way of living, So I'm not off grid here, but I'm trying to be as sustainable as possible. So we're still got the grid electricity. We still use oil sometimes for heating if we run out of wood. Things like that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's about being like that. It's not being idealistic, and being very practical and very realistic about what you can achieve. And also, animals, things go wrong. Like, I don't want to give up on something, but sometimes you can't flog a dead horse, as they say. Yeah. So you've got to just let it go. Because there's multiple, it's like, for me, it's not a business, but it's multiple businesses on the farm. Even there's no money being made at all. Like the goats, I pay to feed them. I pay to look after them. I pay vet bills if I have to pay vet bills. I haven't sold one goat. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I've had goats for 2 years because I've had dead goats. I've had disease. I've had, my buck didn't get all my girls pregnant. So things like that. And I just bought a new buck now. I saw it on Instagram. I think you've seen it. But his name's Kaiser and he's doing the business. So hopefully next year I'll have double what I have this year, but you don't know. You know what I mean? It's precarious, up and down. So it's not for everybody. And this farm was considered what they call a lifestyle farm previously, because the people that was here, they farmed it in a And literally, they let sheep go on it from a neighboring farmer, and they just relaxed in the house. That's all they did. 55 acres. They went out for walks and they came back, and they were here for 5 years. They didn't put one tree in the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas there we planted over 15,000 trees in 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a different way of interacting with the land. You know.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a few comments and things. I believe as long as your food is from a clean source, we shouldn't cut from any food group, i.e. raw dairy, grass-fed meat, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Indiana, we all have a somewhat different biochemistry, and so different diets are suitable for each individual. I don't think that one size fits all when it comes to nutrition. I agree with that. And the reason, the thing I was going to pick you about earlier when you mentioned about the carnivore, and you see, like you mentioned, obviously, like with the kind of West Indian type of kind of background, you said, you know, traditionally, you know, your ancestors have been people who've been big kind of meat eaters and things like that. So I'm thinking, well, maybe your gut biome has developed in that way that it suits you best. And, you know, different people have, you know, this is, I find this really fascinating actually, because in Islam, obviously, we have the concept of the tahniq, right? When the Prophet when a child is born, you're encouraged to chew a date and take the paste of that date from your mouth and give that into the newborn baby's mouth. And it's encouraged, not always from the father, but they say to choose someone who's a pious person within the community or so forth to do that, right? And, you know, I've studied the microbiome quite a bit. You know, I've studied and practiced colon hydrotherapy and all these sorts of stuff. We go into it in a bit of depth. I've also looked into, and I was quite closely involved with a doctor who's been pioneering in the field of fecal microbial transplants, right? So I'm not going to go into that too much again, but I think that's something that you use in agriculture, right? They take the feces from a sick cow and they put it into a healthy cow rather, and put it into a sick cow and help, you know, correct, a disorder which they have in their health, right? So it's something which you're familiar with already. But understanding that, I recognized, and when I considered like the technique and utilizing that, is that the microbiome is throughout the digestive tract and even in the mouth, right? So when you're giving that to a child, you're basically transplanting your gut microbiome from a healthy, pious individual in the community to this child, which should be, if you're a pious individual, you're not involved in kind of the wrong type of activities, which could lead to problems in your health in terms of the way you're looking after yourself. Technically, if you're a pious individual, you should be, you know, halal and tayyib, right? Throughout everything that you do, meaning good and pure in everything that you do, in your actions, behaviors, your food, and all of this stuff. So I thought from that, I was like, you know what? You're transplanting your microbiome, your gut biome, from one generation to the next. And obviously we know with breastfeeding, with mothers, with vaginal delivery, all of this stuff, that's also part of the process. However, I recognize from that different people will have different gut microbiome. And even though you can do tests and all this other stuff, we're not even scratching the surface to know what microbes are in there and whether you've got a good, you know, variety or not, and all this stuff. And this is why we don't promote, you know, in functional medicine, they're very much about test, and they make a lot of money on tests. They don't sell drugs, but they make a lot of money on tests, right? So I'm against that, because I recognize that, you know, a lot of the time you're giving them the same solution anyway. But without digressing too much, is that maybe your gut biome is, and I resonate with you as well. This Ramadan particularly, I've been eating a lot of meat, and I have been having a lot of vegetable, fresh juices and things like that. I've just cut out carbs in my own personal kind of diet, and that's what I find suits me. I'm good with, but it's not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and even like the Prophet, peace be upon him, he cycled, like he had different diets at different times. I know he was a big meat eater. He loved meat. You know, there was the hadith where he ate one shoulder, he ate another shoulder, and he wanted another one from the pot of the person that was giving it to him. And the hadith goes that the guy said, "Look, there's no more shoulders. You know, the animal only has two shoulders." And the Prophet also said, "If you went in and got it, Allah would have provided one, and you would have been another shoulder in there." Have you heard of that?
Yeah, of course, man. That's one I always quote. I think it's a shank, though, isn't it? Is it a shank? Is it a shank?
I'm not sure. I thought it was shoulder, but but obviously there's translation, so I don't know what
I think it's a shank. We love the shank because that's like the creme de la creme in my house.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, that concept. So I got sent a YouTube video of a documentary that was about veganism, right?
Yeah.
Plant-based diet. It wasn't about veganism, actually, technically. And
Just a quick one. Guys, I'm going to go through your comments, by the way. I'm working through them, right? Carry on. Go ahead.
yeah. So I got sent this video, and then all the brothers were just like, "MashaAllah, this is like the Prophet's diet and all this." I said, "What are you talking about, man?" I said, "Where did the Prophet ﷺ eat tofu, bro?" Yeah, like
I
there's
don't think it's compatible. I don't think you, because obviously we've got Qurbani and stuff, right? You have to, in my opinion.
No, it's veganism. I'm not talking about veganism specifically. We're talking about plant-based being it's more healthy, and it was just a shambles of science. It was a terrible documentary. I'm not going to name it because I'm going to get smashed to pieces in a minute, but it was terrible. But the fact that it caught the minds of all the Muslim brothers, I just jumped on the back of it. I said, "Listen." Yeah?
I think one of my clients stars in that documentary.
No way.
Yes.
It's about game changers.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. It's a punish.
Right. He's from the thing. So he's my patient basically. He stars in that. But yeah, he's on it. Like he swears by it, right? And maybe
you're talking about the boxing guy in Game Changers.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, regardless of what effect it has on him, yeah. I don't need your story to tell me that the fact that human evolution has gone on for so long. Okay, you can eat a vegan diet and be healthy, of course. Yeah. But guess what? You're going to be missing out on all the essential nutrients. Yeah. And you're going to have to supplement. You're going to have to. Without supplementation, you cannot sustain a vegan diet. It's impossible. Yeah, you're going to die. End of story. Or you're going to have very bad health issues. So he can swear by that all day long. But human evolution swears by something else. Yeah, we've been around for a very long time, and and I do agree with the idea that certain macros and so on and certain things have different effects on people. Definitely, you can be very healthy and have a grain-based diet with the right fats. Definitely, vegetarian diet even can be healthy with the right fats, eggs, dairy.
It's the same. It's the same with meat diets, right? So the thing is, if you look at a lot of the literature when they're talking about meat, they're taking processed meats and they're putting it all in the same category. That's right. And then they make it studies on that.
A sirloin steak from a grass-fed animal that's only ate grass all his life be the same as a hot dog.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You don't do that with any other food. They just do it with meat and dairy. Yeah, and Anyway, so the Game Changers, watch that, and then if you watch that, there's a debunking video. It's even better. They did it in 10 minutes, literally. They debunked everything in there, right? Yeah. So the idea that gladiators were were plant-based and all this kind of stuff is like, no, they ate plant-based to get fat, so they had lots of extra fat on them, so that when they got cut, they were able to feed. And these were the slaves. But when you looked at the elite athletes, they had in the same time, the elite athletes, they were meat-based. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like choosing history, cherry picking, and then going and debating on Joe Rogan and just being combative with the debating, James Wilkes. And, there's vested interest in there and all that kind of stuff. Even like the power lifter, the Iranian guy is eating pizzas, vegan pizzas and all this. Like, what is this, man? This is nonsense. I told all the brothers in my group, because I took it very personally when he said that's the Prophet's diet. I said, no, it's not. Yeah, I said, first of all, that's not. This has nothing to do with the Prophet's diet. Yeah, firstly, let's eradicate that. Secondly, do not tell your daughters, especially, to get on this diet, because they are going to suffer with menopause, suffer with menstruation issues, and they're going to have their hormones are going to be all over the place. Yeah. They need
100%. But then there were times where, let's say, obviously we know the Prophet fasted, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We also know that there were times where he went 40 days and he didn't put the cooker on, meaning he had a raw food diet, right? So he didn't eat any cooked foods. There's also the time there were certain ghazwas, there's certain expeditions that went on. And I remember there was one that I was listening to, and it mentioned that they were so hungry, that the companions were so hungry that they tied stones to their stomach, and they were carrying on in their mission effectively. And then they came across, and they said it was a miracle that Allah provided them a whale, right? A whale that had been kind of a beached whale that was dead, and or died or whatever it was, and they ate from the whale, and they literally went off just that one whale for months and months and months on end. They dried the meat of it and stuff like that, and that's all they ate. They didn't eat anything else other than that. So we know that, as human beings, we're adaptive. We can use different types of diets, and I personally think, it's a good thing to challenge your system and maybe even cycle and have different diets. I don't know, and find what's best for you. But
Yeah, of course, I agree with that as well. But I disagree with veganism completely. I think
yeah,
veganism is perpetuated by a food industry that wants to create a new product, and it's also the ethical vegan argument is completely debunked. You cannot live life without death.
yeah.
Whatever you try to eat is going to be death involved. So just because you're killing a cow because it's got eyes and it can call its baby is not the same as killing a rabbit. You have to kill a lot more rabbits to plant to get rid of pests. Mixitosis and RHVD2, as we know, are designed to protect crops in Australia. Yeah,
Just, just,
grassland.
just a quick note on that, right? So, you actually, I can remember phoning you and say, "Listen, this is what's happened to my rabbits. I got rabbits which are ill and blah blah blah." When I was trying to breed these rabbits, right? My rabbits got ill, and one of them, the face went all puffy and everything. And I took them to the vet, and the vet told me that it's got this condition called myxomatosis. I said, "Okay, what is that?" And she said it's extremely contagious. And she said anything that they've touched for 100 days, exactly 100 days, is still contagious. So make sure the other rabbits are not near it. And I was like, oh, wow, how come it's 100 days? And she said, oh, well, this is a man-made virus, which is specifically designed to control the population of rabbits. And this has been used for a long, long time. And then when I had the conversation with you, I was like, wow, I didn't know there was actually man-made viruses that are out there to control the population of animals. And obviously there's potentially overlays to that conversation. But I was just like, again, like I said, you learn so much. There's so much you learn from these experiences.
And myxitosis has, you can see it. RHVD2 is overnight. They die. You wake up in the morning. And the reason for this is you might think, oh, that is so evil. Why would you do that? But rabbits have no known predator in Australia. They were brought there from in the colonization of Australia. So they just run rampant. So they have to do something. Otherwise, they can't grow vegetables for vegans. Yeah. So they have to kill off a lot of rabbits. They said there's some I've read somewhere that 25 more times animals die for a pound of vegetables than for a pound of meat. It's because you kill one cow. Steve Irwin, remember Steve Irwin? Crikey, mate, crop and all that. Famous animal lover. They asked him how come he's not vegetarian. He said because if I kill one cow, that cow can coexist with kangaroos, wallabies, and all sorts of stuff. And it's one animal, 1 year, feeds my whole family. He said, but if I have to take that same field and grow corn and maize and tofu and soy and everything, I have to kill a lot more animals. And this is one of the, vegans love him because he's the conservationist and all that kind of stuff. That's a dream job for them, isn't it? To be the guy who's playing around with animals, But the reality is animal sanctuaries, all that kind of stuff. So that's why it's an anti-human diet. It's anti-human. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'll let you get to your comments.
Okay, so we've got Rich with us. Rich is a really interesting guy. He's a patient at our clinic as well, and I've already had some really cool conversations with him. I think I mentioned him to you last time as well. He's a butcher, and he's an artisan butcher, nose to tail. If you've not seen his stuff, check it out. Summers Rich is his tag. He's mentioned here. We need that and I want him on as well. And maybe I don't know if you can get more than one person on at the same time, but it'd be good to get you guys on to have a conversation about how we're going to get your halal meat and the stuff that you've got butchered in such a nice way and all prepared in the way and nose to tail and bone broths and all that kind of stuff. How we're going to get that, because we're going to get there. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to get it out for the people.
We just need to start up a new butchery and have no pigs there, and we'll be sorted.
yeah, that's exactly it. But we'll have to have that conversation. Okay, so he's commented. Yeah. We need that as a species, that we are connected and part of nature, and not above nature. The planet will survive. Our species may not, unless we do not return to biodiversity. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, wow. Key word there, and can I just add one thing to what you said is that a lot of there was an observation by Maria Montessori, famous teacher, homeschool, who become the Montessori method, and she watched a Hindu boy, and he was following an ant with his finger on the ground, following the trail, and then a Muslim boy came on and just squashed the ant, okay, and she said that could have been a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim that did that, because their religion, this is her observations, rightly or wrongly, puts Islam as the Khalifa, sorry, the human as the Khalifa, the owner of these animals. Yeah. So he's learned that thing, but that's not the case. The Khalifa is the responsible one, right? He's not the owner. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Hindu has grown up with, the boy has grown up with a different philosophy, which is actually much more in line in that demonstration with the Islamic philosophy of being the responsible one, the one who allows every single being from a tree to a camel to have its express itself fully.
Yeah.
So that's biodiversity in its purest form.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, Rich knows his stuff, man. Just we've had brief conversations, but yeah, he knows what he's talking about, and we need to kind of share the knowledge for everyone. Obviously, from our side, we want we want it halal, right? We don't want any pigs involved in it, right? Fair enough. But for everyone, right? And I've got a few. Do you know what? It's interesting. We've got a few people who we're going to have on the lives as well. I've got another friend of mine, Josh, as well, who runs 8 Nutrition, and he's just recently produced some organ meat kind of capsules and supplements and stuff, because obviously not everyone likes eating that stuff. And he's very much on the kind of the kind of paleo type of approach, kind of carnivore diet, and he's got a lot to say on that field as well. He's also producing a lot of supplements. We sell his supplements as well in clinic, where we've got a lot of different mushrooms. And again, I think, what is it, like 80 or 90% of soil is fungus, right? So again, we're missing a key link in the whole concept of biodiversity. And biodiversity is so applicable even in your physical health. The biodiversity you have, all the bacteria in your skin, the biodiversity you have in your mouth, in your gut, in everything. We're talking about biodiversity and the importance of it, and having that balance is really key. Right, I'm conscious of the time. We've just hit over an hour, and it doesn't feel like we've been speaking like an hour. That's how much I've been enjoying this conversation. So we're gonna have to kind of catch up and go further with this. But before we do, so hang on a sec. Okay, so it sounds like naturopathy principles first do no harm. There you go. Rich says no pigs, guys. I promise. Okay, amazing. Okay, so
halal pig.
Halal pig. Yeah, we'll create a vegan halal version. Halal goat salami or prosciutto. Is that how you spell it? Prosciutto, yeah. There you go.
It's nice meat.
Do you know what? I'm not joking though. One thing I miss, I was in Morocco, and I actually had it once when I was in London. I had halal sausages, right? That weren't filled with spices, weren't filled with chilies and all the other fillings to try and like reduce the amount of meat is in the sausage. Like pure like fat coming out of them. They were just so nice. I've never tasted them again. Right? I had them once in Morocco.
We do a sujuk at Abraham's, okay? And it's got a little bit of like flavors and spices in it, but it's not all of our sausages are 95% meat. So,
see, I grew up in a house. My stepfather's white, right? He's English, so our palate and everything was like, my mum was cooking like roast dinners. My nan, I used to call her my nan, my step grandmother. You know what I mean, like proper English food, right? So for me, when it's all like spiced up and everything, I'm not. I do like a little bit of spice, right? But I also just appreciate, just like for me, a simple steak with just salt and pepper, and not even pepper, just beautiful taste. That's it.
It's a bit of salt.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, this is what we need. Like everywhere you go, you have halal sausages. You can't get nice, like proper sausages, man. You just can't get them.
I must admit, Abrahams have graduated that. They are better. They're still not perfect, but if you want to get good sausage, go to Abrahams. They've got at least it's 95% meat. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
I think we need to collect as many butchers as we know. We need to send them to Rich and get some proper training on how to be a real butcher. And we've got new places opened up near us, man. I can't. In case anyone knows where I live, then they'll know where this place is. So I'm not going to comment on it. But anyway, it's just, I was like, what is that? I was like, what the hell is that? Anyway, okay. Goat merguez sausage, no water, no cereal, 98% meat. Let's do this. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so finish up. Okay, so I want to go back to what I said earlier. So you slaughtered, and I think you said it was like a young animal, right? And you ate the liver, right? That sounds like something out of like a Dracula movie, right? Or some kind of medieval.
Yeah.
You ate raw liver.
Slice it, salt, and then eat it. So it's not completely raw because the salt kind of just takes off that blood Yeah,
Okay.
but the best way for me, taste wise, that wasn't for taste. That was just purely for respect and for nutrition. So I know I've had that one bit of raw liver for the year, for example, and it's just gone straight into the system.
Tell me a little bit more about that. So first of all, why respect? And then tell me a little bit about nutrition.
So I don't know. It's something very tribal and primordial to slaughter an animal. When it happens, I'm in such a state of awe every time, no matter what. I've done it over and over again. And this is ruminant animals. Generally, it's not the same for chicken. I get into a bit of a mechanized system with slaughtering chicken. But when I do ruminants on my own farm, I'm in a state of complete like awe. And it's almost like it's almost like slow motion. Yeah. And I've cultivated this as well. I've actually really cultivated this. So the animal comes out, it's facing Qibla, everything is done prim and proper. And when I do is I take out all the organs and I slice a bit of the liver, and I do that because it's kind of like, when I say respect, it's like, I want to get the maximum from you to respect you. It's weird, but it's like, so when I had to kill a baby goat just recently, I had to put one down because he got a stroke. It's such a strange thing, but he basically got knocked on the head. That's the only explanation, because his insides were so perfect. So I cooked every part of this little thing. Yeah, I enjoyed him for 3 days. He was only a little 5 kg animal. I shed a tear when I slaughtered this animal because it was so. There was nothing I could do. I bottle fed him. I put olive oil up his bum. I put olive oil in his stomach. I did everything to try and smooth out any compaction that was there. And it was in the brain. It was neurological. So really sad. Anyway, and he was one of the best little ones that we've ever had. He was so solid. What they call kids, goat kids. Yeah. But obviously, he was so robust. He was playing with the big boys, and they gave him one in the head, and he just basically had a stroke. And his arm was all bent up, and it was horrible. But so what I did is I took his head, and I cut open his skull, opened up, took the brain out. I fried that with garlic. Ate that. I ate the eyeballs. I get my kids at eyeballs from it, the back of the eyeball. And actually, I found out there's a tradition when I was talking about it. There's a tradition where they kill the deer and they take the eyeball out raw and they eat that. And it's
raw.
Like, yeah, raw.
Raw. Man, you're making me cringe now, bro. Even me, yeah. I'm on you. I'm like, yeah, I get the idiot, but still, no, it's good. Keep going.
Everything was cooked. My thing was cooked, and that I didn't eat his liver raw. I've ate liver raw before. It's just something I do. It's not like a ritual that I do, but the ritual that I do is that I take the liver and I cook it that day, because nothing tastes better than liver that's fresh out of an animal. There's no meat. If that metallic taste don't exist, all that thing that people all don't like it doesn't exist with fresh liver. It tastes sweet. It literally's got a taste of sugar in it. It's so sweet. So it's like, for me, that's, talk about your friend nose to tail. How can you respect the animal the most? Is to do that. And that is the most Islamic thing you can do as well, because any waste is against our religion.
It's rough.
It's rough, exactly. It's a blameworthy quality. Whereas frugality and being grateful, and then, like I make sure my kids know, this is what happened. This is what happened. And they know, oh, we have to eat. But they're not fazed by it. They just grab the leg and they just start eating it. One of my daughters was a bit funny about eating rabbit, but I've broken that as well. So listen, you can't raise rabbits for pets.
I still haven't eaten rabbit to this day. After all of that time, I still haven't eaten rabbit to this day.
I vaccinated I had to, RHVD2 vaccination. I vaccinated all my does. I've now got 3 litters coming. So I've got about 48 kilo of rabbit coming, hopefully, if everything goes right. So when you guys come up, we'll slaughter a couple of rabbits. You will get one to take away with you. Yeah.
My son will be happy with that. Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. Liver is the most nutrient dense part of a carcass. Even better if completely pasture fed, higher in omega-3. Okay, amazing. So yeah, we're all on the same wavelength by the looks of things. We're starting a little club. Okay.
Even vegans should take liver, right? They should take liver. They should just take it in the pill form. If they're not ideologically vegan, they're just nutritionally vegan. Just take the liver and you'll be fine. Just take the liver. Have a vegan diet and just take liver capsules and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Man, there's so much I want to pull out of you. There's the experience you had when you were slaughtering your cow. There's There's a thing of how long you lived off it. Bro, we're gonna have to do another live. We're gonna have to do it.
I'm up for it. I like it. It's very enjoyable. But obviously we've got iftar coming soon. I've got to get out. These people just turned up. I saw them riding down the hill, man. I was like, oh my goodness. So I've got I have a camping site like that I open for. Basically, it's a donation system. So I say to them, you come, you enjoy the views, you set up your tent, and whatever you feel it's worth, you just give me the money for it. If you want to give me £5, you want to give me £2, it doesn't matter. That's how I do it. Some people put £20 in my hand, some people put £50 in my hand. It's just that's how we roll. So they just come down the hill just now and on their bikes, and I told my sister and my wife, both of them at the same time, I said, listen, I'm doing something right now, man. You just got to go out and tell them where to go, because I'm not going to know where to go. So I'll go see if they're around. Yeah.
Last question before we finish. Yes. What are you having for iftar today?
Grass-finished beef, mince, which is from a neighbouring farmer to me. He's a friend of mine as well. I took the cows down to the slaughterhouse myself. One of them was a huge, she was 400 kg slaughtered. Normally they're around 300. She was another. And the reason why she went to slaughter is because she only took care of herself and not her calf. So she was just beautiful. She had a perfect fat cover, amazing cow. And I'm having that, and then there'll be some salad and stuff with it as well. But generally, I'll just be having the meat with some broth and probably a little bit of salad. I had cabbage yesterday and it mashed me up.
Yeah. So, I've still got that chuck steak that you gave me. I need to cook that.
Oh, come on.
I haven't had no, because you said it takes like an hour to cook. I got to get the broth to cook it. And I want to do it properly. I don't want to not do it properly. So I'm going to save that. But yeah, the question from the from Saif Ali Khan is what you're having. I'm having fruit salad for iftar, and I've got some steak as well. So yeah, doubled up there. That's what I do in Ramadan. That's, to be honest, I feel good. I feel fresh and I feel light. I don't feel when I have steak and I have meat for iftar. Literally, I don't feel that, because I suffer with, like, I'll go into like a food coma if I have carbs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But with meat, I feel full, but I don't feel bloated. So
that's the key. Like, I saw the enjoyment. Okay, yes, a sandwich tastes lovely, and don't get me wrong. Yeah, I will have a burger night, and we'll get brioche buns, and we'll do all of that. I'm very flexible with that. With my kids as well. You know, they want to eat a cake. We're going to eat a cake. It's not, but pasta and bread is not the basis of my diet anymore. That's it. It's now.
Same here.
Yeah. And it makes it so much, like, especially Ramadan. And now I'm 100% convinced. Listen to you as well. Coffee ain't good, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Like, I was like, it's just a fast. It's not. It's the coffee as well. But I love coffee.
Did I tell you that today?
Maybe once a week. Yeah.
I tell you that, yeah.
Yeah, no, you said it. You mentioned to me, but I'm like, because I said to you, do you want coffee? And you were like, no, just herbal. And I was like, oh, you're one of them. You're a fruit tea man, But
the thing is, we got enough stress in our lives, right? It helps you, it releases adrenaline, cortisol. The caffeine just gets you. Do you know what I mean? We got enough caffeine. We've got enough stress in our lives.
I think because of the way I live, I think I can still incorporate coffee a little bit for pleasure, but it's not going to be daily coffee anymore. It's going to be. It's basically going to be a weekly thing, and it's going to be a treat with me and my wife.
For me, it helps. It helps that I don't like it. One of my first jobs, I worked in the Marriott Hotel as the coffee porter. The guy who was going in doing all the coffee, and that smell, I got negative association with it. And ever since that time, I don't like it. Never wanted it again.
Fasting I've never felt. I think this is the best I've felt in years. Especially, and also your treatments as well, like the chiropractic mixed in with the cupping. I must say, just quickly, I had this fluid build up on my left on here after going to you. It's still not gone. We need to sort that out.
We're gonna have to cut that out and just drain it out.
Okay. Big cup on my head, on my ball patch.
All right, bro. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we're gonna have to do this again. I'm gonna get the other guys on, so you're gonna have to tune in and join in, because, like I said, I want to get Rich on, and we're gonna get Josh on as well. We get a few different people on, and I just want to be honest, one of the reasons I want to do this is I just want to help people who are listening, because I enjoy, the network and the people I come across, and I'm so blessed to have that, and just information and knowledge from different people and the experiences they have. I want to share that with the viewers and the people who are watching our lives and stuff, to hopefully open them up to these concepts and get them to explore them and start looking at themselves. But yeah, hit up Muhsen. His tag is Muzzy Farmer. Is that right?
Yeah, Muzzy Farmer.
Muzzy Farmer, M-U-Z,
ZY.
Z-Y, Muzzy Farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hit him up on Instagram, DM him if you want to find out more about his farm, if you want to visit. He's very, very welcoming. His whole family welcome you. And there's loads to do there. It's a really beautiful experience, especially now that the weather's getting good. And unless you guys are having vaccinations, no one's traveling very far. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because a lot of people think they need to get vaccinated to travel. No one's traveling anywhere anyway. So travel in the UK. Go visit Muhsen in Wales. Not that far from Cardiff as well. So you can do a city visit as well as the country. Yeah, check him out. And yeah, have you got links for the Abraham?
So just abrahamshalalmeat.com.
Okay.
abrahamshalalmeat.com, and that's my website. Well, the company that I'm a partner in.
Yeah.
And we've got offers now going on. Eid offers will be next week. So I've just ordered all the lambs in from Welsh Organic Farm in Aberystwyth.
Yeah.
And an organic, all the mutton's coming from an organic supplier in Shropshire, and they're all coming down to the slaughterhouse, and they will be sent to Abraham's for processing for next week for Eid. We also have lots of my friend's company that we're sourcing from, a lot of Ajwa dates, Khidri dates, Sagai dates, and Medjool dates as well on the site. We've got a local honey as well from Fingers. There's loads of stuff, so just go and check it out, spend some money on there, and my business partners will be happy that I haven't wasted any time getting them plugged, you know.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. All right, so guys, do check them out. And the other thing I was going to say, when you look at the meat, just one thing I want to quickly say, because we have the conversation about this, guys. If you want goodness in your body, you have to expect it to be a different price. It's not going to be your Tesco meat price. It's not going to be your local, Brazil chicken fillet price, right? If you're going to eat good, you need to respect the animal, respect the farmers, respect the people who are putting their whole lives on the line to do this type of work so that you guys have access to this kind of stuff. So don't be shocked when you see that, okay, you know what, it's a little bit more, not a little bit, like you said, with the red meat and stuff, it's like a lot more expensive than, the normal chicken and meat and all this kind of stuff. So I always say this, if you truly value something, look at your bank account and look at how your outgoings are. What you're spending more money on is what you value the most. So if Netflix and all of these other subscriptions and all of this is what you have, your biggest outgoings, that's what you value more. And if your health, budget is really small, then you know that where it sits realistically. You can preach all you want, you can say all you want that you value this and you value that, but put your money where your mouth is, literally, and look at what you actually value. Not to point fingers, but ask yourself, what do I truly value, and am I really expressing, and am I exchanging value in the areas which I claim to be? Okay, so we'll finish on that note. I hope you have a blessed iftar, inshallah, and don't forget to remember me in your du'as, inshallah.
Nice one. All right.
Thank you. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.